It is the Michigan Football Report here on a Tuesday, March 11th. Let's take the Ides of March check. I'm not really sure. I think that's what I saw today somewhere. But we are now 1 week out from Michigan football spring practice. We told you a couple weeks ago, first practice is going to be on the 14th. That was the initial announcement. Maybe unofficial announcement, but now they have put the practice calendar out. Michigan will practice on the 18th next Tuesday, so 7 days from now, we will get our first glimpse of Bryce Underwood in spring practice. Obviously saw him a little bit with Michigan's bowl prep for Alabama. But also wanted to ask you guys before we get started to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for getting us to 34,000 subscribers, and we are off on our way to 35,000, another big milestone. So subscribe to the channel if you are a Michigan football fan. Want to take some questions that have been sitting out there on the channel. Got asked when we did a mailbag call. We have yet not answered. How about this one from a Super M fan? He says, other than the Ohio State game, what regular season game could define the 2025 season? Now, let's just take a look at the schedule really quick, because not everybody pays attention to this stuff, 5 and 6 months, 7 months, potentially sometimes out from these games. You start off at home, New Mexico. I couldn't even tell you who New Mexico's coach was at this point. Haven't looked that far into them. Then you go on the road, right, to Oklahoma. And this is what you're going to see throughout this first half of the schedule is some really challenging road games. Back home against Central Michigan, I hope that's a win. Then you're going to go on the road again to Nebraska. So you're 20 days into September. You already have 2 road games against 2 of the top 7, 8, 9 programs of all time, right? 2 legit blue bloods, 2 teams that have won national championships in the last 30, 35 years in Oklahoma and Nebraska. You got a bye week on the 27th of September. Then you go back home, Wisconsin. Not sure we're going to get at Wisconsin this year. It's kind of been an interesting team. They've been trying to go air raid the last few years. Michigan hasn't played them in a couple years. We'll see how that one shakes out. On the road to USC. Michigan got the road win, the home win last year. This is going to be a new USC team. They've got a lot of guys heading out, but also had a nice influx of talent in the transfer portal. Home against Washington, a little revenge game, little national championship, January 8th rematch. Michigan trying to get revenge from the loss out in Seattle this past season. Home against Michigan State. On the road against Michigan State. I'm sure there'll be some sort of brawl like there was in the basketball game between the players, near brawl, because the Spartan fan base and players sometimes are just a classless group of folks. Purdue at home to start off the month of November. You've got a bye week on the 8th of November at Northwestern, Wrigley Field, cool game. We'll see that one at Maryland, and then home against Ohio State before playing in their 4th Big Ten championship game in the last 5 years. These 2025 Wolverines will do. So I've got 3 key games other than Ohio State. What does this team have on the road? Last year, other than the Ohio State game, didn't have a ton on the road. It wasn't a great season for Michigan on the road. Oklahoma and Nebraska. I'm going to do a schedule preview next week, right? Go through every game a little bit. If Michigan can go in through that stretch and play competitive in both games and get out there with a close loss in one of them and win the other, I think you've got to be happy with the rest of the season. Then a few weeks later, you've got the game at USC. So out of your first 6, 7 games, right, before even the 15th of October, halfway through the season, you have 3 road games against 3 of the, 8 blue bloods historically in college football, Michigan being one of them. Then we've got Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, and then these 3 teams, right? Texas, Oklahoma. I think those Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC. I think that's the whole list. Maybe Penn State could be made an argument. Maybe lately Georgia could be made an argument. But 3 games that will define this season for me. If you go 2-1 in these 3 games, Oklahoma, Nebraska, at USC on September 6th, September 20th, and October 11th, I think Michigan is going to have a strong season. I think, of course, they're going to beat Ohio State again, and will make the college football playoff after a 1-year blip in 2024. Let me ask you guys, though, go down in the comments, answer this question. Which game other than Ohio State will define this season? I think if I had to narrow it down to those 3, I'm going that Nebraska game on September 20th. Benchwarmers coming in with a question from the YouTube channel. If Bryce goes 3 and done, right? 25, 26, 27, very much like J.J. McCarthy, do you see Jadyn Davis staying till that point and taking the job then, which would, of course, be in the 2028 season? It's an interesting question, right? Because Jadyn Davis did not get on the field in 2024. Mind-boggling to me. We talked about it on this show. I talked about my Twitter account, which was surprising given the hype he had as a recruit, but that kind of started to wane off added with the fact that Michigan had their worst quarterback situation maybe in the history of the program. Now, if you think about another situation, right, you had a starting quarterback that led Michigan to a Big Ten championship in 2021 with a freshman backup. Not the same exact thing, but pretty close. McNamara got an extra year of eligibility. He could have stuck around, Cade McNamara. Sat out the J.J. McCarthy era 2022 and then 2023, right? He transferred to Iowa. Cade McNamara played at Iowa last year as a 6th year. And do we know he's going to play again in college football like Eastern Tennessee State this year? Cade McNamara could have sat for 2 seasons in 2022 when he lost that starting job after starting the opener. 23 could have been Michigan's starting quarterback in 2024. And frankly, based on what we saw in 2021, I think Michigan could have been a playoff team with Cade McNamara versus what we saw from Davis Warren and the rest of the crew, Alex Orji, Jack Tuttle, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Cade McNamara should have stuck around, and maybe Jadyn Davis will as well. But in this era of NIL and transfer portal, the likelihood that happens is slim to none, unless he just has this wild affinity for the University of Michigan, which I just don't think that we have any evidence that he does. I wouldn't be surprised, not making a prediction, not having any inside info on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jadyn Davis sees how things shake out here in spring practice and then is in the transfer portal here in about 2 months when it opens up, end of April, early May, once spring practice is up, if he knows he's never going to beat out Bryce Underwood. Mr. and Mrs. Zachary, question coming in. Do you think Bryce Underwood will ball out during the spring game? Well, we got a month and 4 days, right, till the month and a week to the spring game. Spring game is April 18th. Michigan will have basically 1 month to get in their 15 practices. So I'm actually guessing there's going to be practice every other day. It's the thing that makes the most sense. Or stack practices, 2 on, 2 off, something like that. Ball out. I don't know, but Michigan's going to give him the opportunity to win the starting job. And for me, that means throwing the ball downfield, seeing wide receivers, and not making mistakes. So he's going to put up, some, oh my gosh, like C.J. Stroud at Ohio State 3 or 4 years ago, where it's like, wow, he's a redshirt freshman. He sat the bench behind Justin Fields for a year. That spring comes out and just throwing 21 of 25 and just throwing up all the field. I'm not sure. The reason I'm not sure is we've never seen that from Sharon Moore as offensive coordinator. And we really don't know what we're getting with Chip Lindsey, but I don't think he's going to be, the handoff merchant like a lot of people have said Michigan quarterbacks have been for decades going back. Louisa Utley, who will be your quarterback for 2025, and is the offensive line and defensive line ready for another year? A lot of questions coming in here from Louisa. Thank you so much for them. Will a team win a national championship again? That would be so cool. It would be cool. And I know the answer to this question, but I just want to ask. Does she know the answer? Is Louisa a truth teller? Oh, okay. Got it. Will you win against the Buckeyes? Well, if that's the question, we all know the answer. Bosa beat Ohio State. And go Blue. Love you guys. I'm going to talk about this on a later show, probably coming up next week, about just potential underperforming position groups. But let's take a look at the units that Louisa asked about here in just one moment. But first, I did want to tell you about Factor Meals, who is back sponsoring the Michigan Football Report. We are so excited to have them back. If you are ready to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can feel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. You can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. They're based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from your preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/MichiganChat50 off and use code MichiganChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. I put the link and that code in the second paragraph of the description below the video. Go click on it. That's MichiganChat50 off is the code at factormeals.com/MichiganChat50 off. 50% off your first box plus free shipping with Factor Meals. I love Factor Meals, Jack. You love Factor Meals. And we're so thankful for them coming back on the show, sponsoring the Michigan Football Report. My wife's out of town, Jack. Factory Meals is my way to go. If you're a guy who doesn't like cooking, gal who doesn't like cooking, Factory Meals, gourmet. It's amazing. We love it. She mentioned offensive line. She mentioned defensive line. Let's take a look at my leading into spring depth chart for those two positions. You've got Andrew Sprague. You've got Brady Norton, Greg Crippen, Giovanni El Hadi, and Evan Link. I don't think Evan Link is going to be around necessarily forever. But Brady Norton, if you remember, he is the player who was a 2-year starter, or is a starter for a couple years at Cal Poly, has 2 years of eligibility left, was an all-conference player. And then you've got Lawrence Hatter is the backup there at the right guard. I think ultimately could overtake Giovanni El Hadi. 5th-year player, started at Ferris State. Division II, was a Division II All-American, All-Conference level player, led them to a national championship, anchoring that offensive line. If Michigan fans just expect to have a dominant offensive line year after year after year, I think they're going to be in for a little bit of a reality check. This offensive line, hopefully, like last year, by the end of the year, gets stronger and stronger. But I do think there are going to be some hiccups early on in the season. Couple transfers getting in there. Evan Link, the weakest link. If this offensive line plays at a B level for the first 3 or 4 or 5 games of the year, I think you should be satisfied. I'm expecting just a smidge below that. How about the defensive line, right? We've got some new faces there, right? Trey Williams coming over from Clemson. I think he's a 6-year player, like a 2020 high school graduate. But I'm sliding him in without seeing him on the field yet. Just getting some vibes, hearing what he's been putting in there in pre-spring practice workouts. TJ Guy had himself a really nice bowl game, had a nice game against Ohio State as well. Derek Moore, Rayshon, Trap, Money, Benny. Then you've got Payne Jr. Coming in. David Payne Jr. from Alabama, former 5-star. Eno Etta has had glimpses of success. Nate Marshall, we've got as a 3rd string at the defensive end. He actually got hurt recently in a basketball game, so hopefully it's not something serious. High school basketball game for the very high 4-star that flipped from Michigan to Auburn, back to Michigan. So those are 2 position groups that if they succeed, if they're successful, if they play at the highest level, Michigan will have a great year. But do not expect it to just be dominant from day one. Transfers coming in, a lot of talent heading out, especially on that defensive line. We'll see how things shake out. But they've been a strength of this program for generations, and especially over the last 3 or 4 year run. One more thing Louisa mentioned, will Michigan beat Ohio State again? It's always beat Ohio State again. Bosa, it's probably the best political slogan in sports YouTube history that we started here back in 2020. If you want Michigan to get 5 straight over Ohio State, comment Bosa over and over. Hell, just comment it 5 times to get 5 wins for these Wolverines. Jeff O'Neill with the question saying, superior field goal kicking gave Michigan the edge over Ohio State in 2023. In 2024, game winner, Dominic Zvada. Boom. With Zvada returning for 2025, does this give us a mental edge in the game at the Big House? Well, I just got one word for you here. It's yes. That's it, Jack. Just one word. No, kidding. But yes is the clear answer. I think mental edge. Ohio State, as a program, they are jaded by these missed field goals. Back to the Georgia game, they missed some against Michigan last year that ultimately cost them the game. And I don't think Ryan Day has a ton of confidence in his special teams, right? He's either a go-for-it guy or a punt guy. Rarely does he take a 54-yard field goal to tie the game late in the 3rd quarter, early 4th quarter, kind of a coach. So I think the one word I'm going with is yes, gives Michigan a mental advantage. Now, Sharon Moore has said this multiple times this offseason that if we are in a 1-score game with Ohio State, we think we're going to win the game. We like our chances to win. And what's his reasoning behind that? I think there's a lot of things, right? Mental toughness is one of them. Relying on your kicker, knowing he's going to hit that field goal that's going to get the win in Columbus. Second time, this since 3rd time this century, 2nd time since 2020, right? You went on a full 22-year stretch, and now you won back-to-back in Columbus. So glad to see Zvada back. I think he is on pace to be maybe the best Michigan kicker of all time, which is insane given the run with James Turner and Jake Moody and others, the run of kickers that Michigan Michigan's been on lately. Love to have him back, and I think he was totally robbed. Should have got the Lou Groza Award last year, which he will get in 2025. Spring practice starts in 1 week, and we are taking your questions here on the Michigan Football Report. Just a reminder, subscribe to the channel as we get closer to 35,000 Michigan football fans. Subscribe, the most watched YouTube show, podcast, radio show, TV show, covering the Wolverines 22, 23. We're going to do it again in 2025. Over to the Instagram account at Michigan Football Report, we've got Drake Odell 24. Speaking of Odell, did you see those allegations coming out with Odell Beckham and Diddy? You see that, Jack? Woo! Odell Beckham being named. Do you think the hire of Chip Lindsey will be positive or negative thing for our program? Who knows, right? I don't know. I liked Kirk Campbell when he was the quarterback's coach. He got put in a tough situation. Maybe part of it that he played into, right, was responsible for, of not having a quarterback ready to win in 2024. And the offense suffered for it. His career may have taken a step back for it. He's landed nice on his feet with the Chargers. But I don't know what to make of Chip Lindsey, right? He's had periods of success in his career. He's had some periods of lack of success. I don't think his North Carolina team last year was what I would call successful offensively, right? They lost Drake May, and we understand that, but they're not getting the ball. That offense last year was not getting the ball downfield to their receivers. They relied on tight ends. They relied on running backs a little too much for my liking. So what does this offense look like? What are we going to hear about from spring practice over the next 4 and 5 weeks? What are we going to see in the spring game? It is all something that I'm going to get the answer for. You're getting the answer for, at least by April 18th is what we are hoping for. I'll ask you guys this question to end the show today. Who will be Michigan's leading wide receiver? Let's just talk about catches. Who of the most catches will be the Indiana transfer, Donaven McCulley? If it is, type 1 down in the comments. Fred Moore, give me a 2 down in the comments. Semaj Morgan, 3, or if it's someone else, a non-named player here, go ahead and put 4. You can even name the player you think will be Michigan's leading wide receiver. Thanks so much for watching the show today. Till I see you guys next time, go Blue.